Check, check, check.
Hello?
Check, check. Check, check. Check, check,
Hello?
check. Check, 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 check. Check, check, check.
This one works, right? Oh. Yes, it's off.
Good evening. My name is Keegan Lowry, and I am a senator of Newberry High School's Student Government Association. I am joined tonight by Audrey Ellenberg, the junior class president. Together, we will be the moderators for this evening's mayoral debate. This is the first mayoral debate in Newberry's recent history, and we're excited to be here.
On that note, we want to first thank our candidates for accepting our invitation for tonight's debate. We also want to thank the City of Newberry for helping us facilitate this event. And of course, we want to thank everyone attending live or watching at home via YouTube for participating as well.
With us this evening are two candidates for the next mayor of the City of Newberry, Ms. Joy Glanzer and Mr. Tim Martin.
Now, here's the format that the candidates have agreed to follow in tonight's debate. Each candidate has submitted 3 questions for 3 separate categories, which respectively are economic development, vision for the future, and governing philosophy. They submitted these questions to our student body president, who unfortunately is playing a lacrosse game right now. No person outside of the student government has seen these questions, not even our sponsor. The candidates did a coin toss to determine the order of the questions, and Mr. Tim Martin will be giving the first 2-minute opening statement.
Following opening statements, we will begin with the first question, which will be a question from Ms. Joy Glanzer directed to Mr. Tim Martin. Mr. Martin will then have 2 minutes to respond to that question. We will continue in that format, altering between the questions each candidate submitted. After each candidate has had the chance to ask his or her opponent 3 questions in that category, we will go to audience questions.
As you have heard, if you have a question you want us to ask and you did not submit the question before we started, simply raise your hand and Ben will bring you an index card and a pen. When you have legibly written your question down, raise your hand again and Ben will collect your question. We will try to get as many audience questions as possible. Once all the questions are asked in that category, we will then have a 4-minute crossfire in which each candidate has the opportunity to ask his or her opponents a question directly. There will be a crossfire after each category.
Candidates, we ask you hold your rebuttals to the crossfire. As a point of order, though, 1 minute of rebuttal time may also be granted to a candidate at the discretion of the moderator. If a personal attack is omitted, this light will begin flashing when you have 30 seconds left in your response. Do the candidates have any questions?
No.
Do we ask them directly or do you ask them? Okay, good.
We will now begin our opening statements. Both candidates have agreed on a virtual coin toss. Mr. Tim Martin will have the first word, and Mrs. Joy Glanzer will have the last. Ready when you are.
Great, thank you very much. I want to thank the students here at Newberry High School. It's a great tradition that we have here in Newberry. Folks, I am your day one ready mayor candidate. As commissioner for the 12 years, I know the issues, I know the people involved, I know the history, and I know the goals. I want you to hear really 3 main themes from me tonight. It's my commitment, my conviction, and most importantly, my consistency. I hope we get through a lot of policy issues and talk about some tangible things that really make a difference to Newberry, like infrastructure and growth. But I also hope we get to some intangible things as well, like what really makes Newberry special, our heart for volunteerism, and our purpose. I've done some pretty big things and little things as commissioner. A couple of big things I started 12 years ago. I saw corruption in the fire department. I brought in the FBI and sought restitution and got it for the city of Newberry. I watched hard-earned tax dollars being given out for political favors, and I helped to stop that. I saw a leadership team that had no discipline and helped change it and develop it into what you actually see today. And here are a couple of little things. I put the crosswalk flags here in downtown. I coached youth sports, and I've hosted voter education events as well. I've even mowed my neighbor's lawn when they lost their mom. Over my tenure, I've had a front row seat and made some hard leadership decisions. about Publix, about the recreation center, and improvements like the inclusive playground, the equestrian showplace, preservation, Champions Park renovations, the UFIFAS extension relocation over here to Newberry to preserve our heritage, housing and road projects, the overlay district standard upgrades, an entire city-wide utility upgrade, and redrawing of urban service area and implementation of the community redevelopment district. But it's actually not very easy for me to stand up here and take credit because it really belongs to our team here at the city. It is just being a part of a great commission, focusing on core services, hiring a staff that is second to none, giving them the tools and resources to be successful, and then getting out of the way. I look forward to our discussion tonight. I am your day one ready candidate. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming this evening. I look forward to answering a lot of questions, which is an opportunity to talk about the way I would like to see Newberry roll into the next chapter of its long history. I've been here in Newberry since 1977. We raised 4 children here and had 6 businesses in the downtown Newberry area. And we served wherever we saw a need. It's been a long and rewarding life for me and my family here in Newberry, and now I want to give back in a different way, in a new way. I will be your full-time mayor. This is my only job, and you'll be my focus. The growth we're seeing in Newberry has been a long time in our vision. It didn't just happen overnight. I want to make sure we give it our diligent attention so that it's growth that we can all be proud of. I will have an open door policy, which means if you have anything to talk to me about, come on. Text me, email me, call me, drop in. I'm ready to talk with you about anything you have to say, and I'll listen. We have so many new people coming to Newberry now, and we welcome them all. I don't care what creed, color, religion, party affiliation, or any other thing that might separate us. We want to welcome them. And to those of you that have been here a while, please help me to keep Newberry, Newberry. Thank you.
All right, so firstly, we're going to begin with our questions that the candidates have submitted. We're going to start with category 1, which is economic development. Mr. Martin, for 12 years, you have voted no to every grant that has been offered to the city of Newberry, totaling millions of dollars. For example, you voted no on a $2 million grants for infrastructure recently, respectively $1 million for elevated water storage tank and $1 million towards the regional wastewater treatment plan. If your vote had caused Newberry to lose those grants, what was your plan to replace the millions lost?
Well, frankly, the grants are not always guaranteed, and what I advocate typically against is federal grants because they're really not free money. Those are actually debts because the Federal Reserve just prints the money. Those are debts on our children, our unborn grandchildren in my case. So I don't necessarily see it as a win in the traditional sense, but more of taking on another debt. But again, those grants aren't necessarily guaranteed, so it doesn't necessarily mean that we would have lost the money. And if we had to make it up somewhere else, we have been very diligent and very respectful about the taxpayers' money. I mean, we have a lot of reserves. We have months and months of worth of reserves, and we would just have to take it and make a business decision about how to address it.
Ms. Glanzer, what do you see as government's role in economic development?
Oh my gosh, well, what we're seeing now is the growth and development that's been planned for a very long time, about 30 years. And Mayor Hartzog back then, in the government, in the city commission, he appointed about 21 people to give us a vision for what we saw was the future of Newberry. And I went back and looked at it the other day, and it was stunning. I mean, there was 5 things on that list, and every single one of them, I look downtown now and I look out towards Publix, and it's happening. Government has a real big impact on an economic development. They can't go out and bring the businesses here, but they can lay the foundation. For example, look at the Ag Tech Park we've got. We've planned that, 5 or 6 years ago? And just last month, we had a big grand opening where there's 2 new businesses, the first 2 ag tech businesses that are going there. One is from Ukraine, actually, and the other one is from right here in Alachua County. So we lay the foundation, we put the zoning where it needs to be, we tell people to come here, and we give them incentives, but we need to be actively involved in economic development, and I think we have done a great job of that in the past.
Mr. Martin, Last February, you voted to allow zoning for an industrial park to be located across the street from two neighborhoods on a 50-acre parcel, which was then zoned agricultural. With plenty of other industrial areas designated in Newberry's comp plan, what was your thought process allowing that non-conforming industrial designation outside of the zone, and will you continue to approve this type of spot zoning?
Every one of these cases need to be taken on a risk-benefit analysis and what really benefit they bring. That industrial park is relatively small scale. It is really dedicated to the NC Ranch that's going to be located just adjacent to that property. So what it actually does is help things like the environment, because you don't have trucks going in and out of the road all day long. They'll be able to stay on the site, and they'll be able to actually service the property in which they're designed for. There's a 50-foot, I think, setback. There's a berm around it. In particular, there's a concrete plant that's going to be all the way in the back. You can barely see it because of the contour of the land and the horizon. So for me, it was, just seeing all of the many benefits that it had to have it located right adjacent to where it's going to be serving. And once that ranch is potentially built out, that's not going to be there anymore. But I think it's much more beneficial to have it there than somewhere across town and having rigs with concrete trucks and going all, across town just trying to service the property. So that was really what I was thinking about.
Ms. Glanzer, as a commissioner, you could have had a vote on developments and a direct impact on decisions, but you chose to run for mayor instead. Why?
You repeat that last part?
As a commissioner, you could have had a vote on developments and a direct impact on decisions, but chose to run for mayor instead. Why?
Oh, if I ran for commission?
Yes.
Oh, well, for one thing, I didn't know the mayor's seat was going to be vacated. And so when it was, I saw an opportunity for a brand new start. Mayor Marlowe has huge shoes to fill, but I would love to work with him in his next, phase as city manager, and I think we'd make a good team. I've worked with Mayor Marlowe on so many projects over the years. We started, the Newberry Opioid Task Force we've worked on together for years. The Rosewood Foundation we've served on together, and we have very similar visions for the future. And like I said, I've been here a long time. I've been rewarded here in Newberry, and this is my chance to give back. I've already been a commissioner, and I think we had a lot of great things that we did during that term. I won't go into all of them now, but I was very happy about it. So anyway, this is an opportunity to start over and start fresh, and I look forward to serving with Mayor Marlowe. Well, soon to be City Manager Marlowe.
Mr. Martin, community development districts relieve citizens from paying for new infrastructure and improvements within a new development. You have voted no on all three CDDs and have been approved in Newberry, most recently the Highland Park development across from Publix. Why do you believe that residents and commercial tenants of the new developments should not pay for the new improvements, but the citizens of Newberry should pay for them instead?
The citizens of Newberry don't actually pay for them. That's not really how the CDD works. The biggest challenge that I could not get over with the CDDs is it actually grows government. I'm a small government guy, and even the attorney for all the CDDs admitted that it adds to government. And just, simply because I'm not interested in growing government. And just for everybody's edification, how it does that is it creates a dialogue with the state because there's oversight that needs to be done. Somebody's going to have to do that at the state. There's voting that actually happens, so you are adding more to the plate of the supervisor of elections. There's also, I think, an economic development element that needs to be reviewed by the state as well. So all of those people have to be paid for by taxes. I think that, at the end of the day, I think the builder, and what it really does is it divides the price. Your residents are going to have one bill basically for their mortgage, and they're going to have one bill for the infrastructure of the CDD. Under a traditional mortgage, that's all combined. So now it's just split into two payments. So it really doesn't make a difference for the resident. It really doesn't, in the end, make a difference for the developer. What it does do is grow government, and I'm against that.
Ms. Glanzer, do you agree with the Commission's push to enhance buildings, landscapes, and setbacks with the overlay district standards and the redrawing of the urban services area to improve city services?
So what I'm really excited about that goes in hand with that is that I learned recently that the city's going to redo or review their LDRs, their land development regulations that haven't been looked at for many, many years. And that's where we're going to get the opportunity to look at all those things you just mentioned And for the citizens, the good thing about that, and I get a little bit excited about this, because you're going to get an opportunity to come to the workshops, have your input to all these things that are going to be decided. Landscaping, the signage that we're going to allow for commercial development, setbacks, fencing, anything you can think of that looks like the city is going to be decided when these LDRs are reviewed and renewed. So over the next 2 years, we're going to be looking at those, and I really hope that everyone gets involved and comes and gives us their input. What do you want to see Newberry look like? This is your chance to do it. It only comes once every many, many years, and so it's going to be interesting to see. It's a good.
All right, so that was the end of our pre-selected questions for this category. We're going to move on to the audience-generated questions that our audience has submitted. Basically, we're going to ask the question, and then both of you guys will have your allotted time slot to respond. Mr. Martin, since you won that coin toss, you can go ahead and respond first, and then Mrs. Glanzer, you will follow. So our first question is, I am a fifth-generation Newberry and have no kids or grandkids in school. I also don't get Newberry utilities. How will you protect me from higher taxes? Mr. Martin?
Well, I mean, really, and I actually mentioned this in my closing, it's really about local. I mean, the local folks here on the commission, they set those tax rates. That's probably, sort of the biggest chunk that we really have an impact on. Our, tax bill in a whole also has to do with the school board. It also has to do with the county. It has to do with fire assessments and things like that. One of the big things that we did here was we decided not to go into the MTSU with the Alachua County Sheriff element, and that's actually saved the taxpayers here in Newberry millions of dollars. Had we been forced into the MTSU, which is part of the county, we would have been paying a lot more. As it is now, we've been able to control the cost of the Alachua Sheriff's contract, and we have that contract specifically because of me. So that's one probably big feather in my cap as far as being able to save taxpayers money directly here in Newberry.
Mrs. Glanzer, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I'm fine. Actually, I was sitting next to him, and I voted on it, too. The sheriff's deal was a big deal for us. It saved us a lot of money. A lot of these taxes are set by the county, and at this level, we don't have nothing to say about that, but we can look at the water, we have the water, the garbage pickup, and things like that we can control here, and we look at that real seriously. I mean, every budget year, we look at it, but unfortunately, even if you don't have a child in school, you're obligated to pay those school board taxes, and that is set by the county. So we really have nothing to do about that. So if you don't have a school child, you might want to talk to the county about that. But everything else we'll do the best we can, and I think Newberry has done a great job of keeping our taxes as low as possible. In fact, for the last many, many years, we haven't gone past the millage rate we had for the previous year. So I think they've done a great job, and I have to give them credit for that. So.
Ms. Glanzer, you will get to answer this question first, followed by Mr. Martin. What is the plan for the infrastructure as we grow?
So, well, it's all in our comp plan. I mean, we have got to keep capacity in our wastewater plant, for example. So what they've done is these impact fees that are set now, for example, if you want to build a subdivision and you're going to have 100 houses, you have to set aside and reserve capacity, is what they call, for that future development. So if you have 100 houses, you have to pay the city $7,000 per house before you even start. Most builders, of course, bond that money because nobody has, tens of millions of dollars laying around. But that's going to be there. That money will be there, and it can only be used for that infrastructure. So every builder that comes in, they're going to be held to that standard. We recently started assessing impact fees to builders in general. I wish we had done it 20 years ago, because then we'd have roads that aren't in disrepair, but actually now we've got them. So every time a house goes up, that builder pays additional impact fees for that house and for supposedly the impact they have on our roads and our infrastructure and that kind of thing. So those are the ways we're going to pay for infrastructure. Yeah.
Mr. Martin, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yeah, go ahead.
What is the plan for the infrastructure as we grow?
Well, the infrastructure is paid kind of as we go. And one misconception, I would say, is that we were supposed to have all this infrastructure kind of in place before the growth gets here. Well, that actually puts the burden of paying for that on all of the current citizens versus the people who are actually creating the demand. We have right before us right now, and I'm sitting at the table already, speaking to what's going to happen with the wastewater treatment, with the roads and all those sorts of things. I've been at the table talking with DOT about what we're going to do with the two-way pairs to relieve the road infrastructure issues. I'm actually not really in favor of impact fees so much. I mean, when we talk about cost-effective housing, affordable housing, those sorts of things are driving up the cost of houses for everybody. For you kids, if you stay here and want to actually build a home here, you're going to have to pay those additional fees. And what really kind of gives me a little bit of pause about the impact fees and things like that is I'm just not really sure that they will do what they are kind of intended to do, which is to potentially curb growth or to slow growth down and that sort of thing. So everything that we take is on a case-by-case basis. I have more experience than my opponent at doing this at this point, and I'm proud to be able to do that. I take a lot of ownership in making those hard decisions that we have to make here, and I think my track record shows that.
All right, thank you. That concludes our audience-generated questions for Category 1. We're now going to have a 4-minute crossfire period where you guys will get the chance to, review any arguments made. I don't think there's a...
Well, I just had one question on the zoning that ag land into industrial. I know it'll keep trucks and everything off of our streets. However, we have a lot of industrial land already zoned that way, just within a half a mile or a mile of where that site was. And also, you said it's not a big site. It's 50 acres. And if you put that overlay onto the northeast section of Gainesville, that's kind of like the industrial park in Gainesville. So it was concerning to me that it was put right across the street from that neighborhood instead of in a zone where our comp plan puts this kind of stuff.
Well, you're talking about 50 acres servicing a site that's over 1,500 acres. And regardless of whether there's an industrial plant across the street or 10 miles down the street, there's no guarantee that that's where the supplies are actually going to come from. So you don't have a guarantee that we're going to actually use somebody that's local for that. I rest on my decision, is all I can tell you.
Thank you.
I have no question at this time. I'd rather have more audience questions, honestly.
Okay. The next category will be vision for the future.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Martin.
Yeah.
Do you support the middle and high schools converting to public charter schools if NES is successful?
100%. 100%. And I don't know if that was a question that she also had for me, but that was a question that I had for her.
No, I didn't have a question.
Oh. I apologize.
It's okay.
Mrs. Glanzer, do you support the middle and high schools converting to public charter schools if NES is successful?
So it's interesting, over this past few months when this has really been an issue, every single person without exception, when I ask them, how do they feel, they all agree, no matter which side they're on, they want the best thing for their kids. However that looks to them may be different, but that's the focus they have. So right now, we're going to be governed by 2 school boards, the Newberry School Board and the School Board of Alachua County. We're going to have to work with both of them. But the specific question was, do I support converting the middle school and high school? And now that we have the elementary school as a public conversion, I would want to wait at least 2 years to see how that works, because it's new for us. I mean, I'm not saying, there might be anything wrong with it initially, but I really want to see if it works. I mean, why would we go and convert all 3 of them when we can test it with one of them? I've talked to teachers on either side of this issue as well, and the thing they want is the best thing for the kids. It'll be interesting if the Newberry High School and the middle school does come back for a vote. It hasn't been brought up yet, but I have heard, talk about that people want to do that. I don't think there's an appetite right at this moment because it tore our community apart when we went through the elementary school conversion. So I would like to wait 2 years to see how the elementary school does and to make sure they can make their budget, to make sure that school board, sticks to their promises, gives the teachers raises, maintains the schools as we want them to, and stays on budget. If that happens, then, if the community wants to do it, I would support it. It's up to the community at that time.
Mr. Martin, faced with an estimated $80 million wastewater treatment plant within the next 10 years, what is your plan to raise that money?
Well, I think the $80 million bill is actually going to be coming due much sooner than that, particularly. One thing that I think is fantastic, and we have a gem in our utility director named Jamie Jones. Jamie has taken the proactive position of actually trying to get contractors out here to our site to curb the costs and for them to understand before the bid what exactly they're actually getting involved in. So we actually are sort of anticipating that project because we've looked at projects exactly like it across the state, and those projects are actually coming in the $50 to $55 million range, so significantly lower. In order to pay for that, though, one of the things that we were talking about yesterday when Mayor Marlowe and I were in Tallahassee was about being able to pay for that. We're probably looking at an actual loan from the Department of Environmental Protection at the state. The citizens of Newberry that are currently here are not going to be paying for that. Let me be clear, they're not going to be paying for that because it'll be the connection charges, it'll be the impact fees that are actually paying for that. So the people that are requiring and demanding the expansion of things like the wastewater plant, those people will actually pay for that when they build a home and they connect it because they're going to be paying things like the impact fee and things like the connection charges. So I hope that answers your question.
Mrs. Glanzer, how has the commission set up the community for success?
How does this commission set up the community? I think it's a two-way street. I think the citizens have a lot to do with the success of the city. You don't have to be an elected official to make a difference in this community, and I think, the citizens show that. I mean, we have volunteers everywhere. We've got the Main Street organization, the chamber, school programs, school organizations. So I think that the community supports the commission. The commission does, it's, like I said, it's a two-way street.
Mr. Martin, what sources of revenue will you use to pay for streets and road improvements in the future?
Well, we've invested, I think this year we're on track to invest about $4.8 million from the city, and the city is, it's made up of multiple bank accounts essentially. So there's different buckets of money. We have a local gas tax that we negotiated with the county to increase for Newberry. There's of course property taxes, but an element of the impact fees is for additional road and improvements and things like that. But by and large, when a development goes in, they're paying all of that additional, roads that are needed to get to the houses and those sort of things. So they're kind of built into the cost of the homes.
Mrs. Glanzer, do you want Newberry to have its own police department in the future?
Well, we've looked into that many times over the years. Up until a couple of years ago, the budget is way too much for us at this point. However, as you know, we're growing, we're getting new neighborhoods, new businesses. Eventually in the future, we're going to need it, but it's going to have to be cost effective compared to working with the sheriff's department right now. And at this point, I don't think it's feasible. I would love to see it. I think we could have more coverage and we'd get more, bang for our buck, but we'd have to wait till it makes sense. And I'm not willing to vote for something yet now if we can't support it financially, because it's going to be a lot more expensive than our sheriff's contract is at this point.
Mr. Martin, do you envision working with the City Commission completely in the sunshine? Are there any circumstances where you believe there needs to be meetings outside of the public purview?
Well, there's, as a mayor, I have the option. I'm allowed to talk to the individual commissioners. I'm not allowed to daisy chain. I can't say, hey, this commissioner told me this. What do you think to another commissioner? That's called daisy chaining. You're not allowed to do that. There's never been an incident where, we were conducting a backdoor meeting or conducting business out of the sunshine. A role of a commissioner is very different from the role of a mayor. A commissioner cannot talk to another commissioner about information that could be coming before the dais, particularly information that's coming before the dais to have an actual vote on it. So I'm not really sure if there is a slighted accusation in there, but you can talk to the other commissioners and the mayor as well, and I think they'll back up my story.
Okay, so we will again head into our audience-generated questions for Category 2. The first question, we will start with Mr. Martin again. If elected, what legacy do you want to leave Newberry with?
Well, gosh, as I don't ever want to add more debt onto our students and our unborn grandchildren than we have right now. I hope that we, leave a legacy that can be built upon. I've often said that we stand on the shoulders of some great people in this community. A lot of them are sitting right there on the wall. I'd love for my kids or my grandchildren to look back and say, "Yeah, Dad was one of those people." So, we've done some great projects in Newberry. I think we have set up the city greatly for success. I think we have kind of controlled the growth and where things are going to be, in the future, 10, 15, 20 years from now. But a lot of that's going to be left up to, the people that come after us. And I really hope that our commission has been able to focus on core services, and that is sort of a pace and a history that we leave behind for other people to do the same thing. Focusing on core services here in Newberry is what really has separated us. We don't focus on social programs. It keeps the friction down within the community. We have shorter meetings because we're not getting involved in other stuff. You can look at the corresponding entities and city commissions and county commissions, school board around us, and see, what those sorts of things, what kind of fruit they bear. And that doesn't happen in Newberry. And I think that's really one of our hallmarks, and I really hope some of those things really continue long after I'm here. We talk about on the commission all the time about decisions that will potentially handcuff a future commission, and we try to stay away from any of that stuff. But I think it's also just having fiscal discipline as well, not leaving bills to be paid. We talk about not kicking the can down the road and things like that.
Ms. Glanzer, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I think I know. I would like to make this town be as good as it is for the future as it was for the past for my family when we came here. It's just been the most wonderful place to raise a family. But the one thing, I want to make sure I leave it with good streets and roads, and that our utility infrastructure is there to match the growth that we're going to see in the next 20 years or so. And I just want to make sure we're fiscally sound. And I do agree with my opponent that not leaving debt for the future is key, because that's a job that we have to watch. We can't tie our kids to future debt. And I want our schools to stay strong. There's a lot of things that we can do to just make sure everybody has the best town they can. Publix is here now, so I would like to see more growth like that. I would love to see our downtown flourish and have more shops and eateries. And I'd just like to leave this town to be a place that people would just want to love to be here, like we do.
Thank you. Mr. Martin's question specifically for you. Do you want to have Newberry to have its own police department in the future?
Well, the studies right now have come back showing that's anywhere between 6, 7, and in some cases $8 million. Right now, we are paying a little over $1 million. So you're talking about justifying a 7 to 8 time-fold increase. For me, that's a pretty steep hill. We could probably expand the contract, double 3 times what we have now, and not even get halfway to that cost. But another component that we really need to keep in mind is the liability aspect of it. A small town like ours, one bad decision or one bad traffic stop could really send us sideways with a lawsuit. It could potentially bury and bankrupt a city like ours. Now, there are insurances and things like that that come into play, but all of that sort of stuff is spinning around in my head when we start having that kind of conversation. So it's a very steep hill for me to get there at this point. I know that we have talked about it. I think we've actually studied it at 2 different times now in my tenure of being here, and neither time did it really. Would I like to have something that's kind of a homegrown police department? Yeah, I would love to have that. I think it's a great piece to have in a small town, but is it affordable, and is it worth the liability potential? I think we've got a lot of great deputies that live in this town. If duty called, whether they're working or not, we probably have 50 or 60 deputies, I would say, that probably live within a couple of miles of here. They're going to be Johnny on the spot here, whether they're on the clock or not.
Awesome. Now, Mrs. Glanzer, as mayor, what impact or influence will you have on the charter schools?
Well, the city will not be involved in the charter schools. That may be a misconception with the public. They will be run by the Newberry School Board. So we will I will be watching it to make sure they're doing what they need to do. But as far as everyday, day-to-day policies, the books that they read or the curriculum they have, that's not going to be at all the decision of the city. So we hope that the Newberry School Board will keep a good eye on it, and we expect them to. And to stick there, to make sure they're going to do all the things they promised. As we said, give the teachers the raises they promised, keep the overcrowding from happening, but that's going to be up to the Newberry School Board, not the city.
This question is for both candidates. I will start with Mr. Martin. Do you support the idea of Springs County? Why or why not?
Yeah. Who doesn't think I do? Well, obviously, as the person that started it, I am in favor of it. I know there's a rumor out there that I'm just trying to be mayor so that I can forward Springs County, and that's not the case. I actually addressed that on Jason McGee's podcast, which you can go check out on this page. But the idea of Springs County was about smaller government, less taxes, and more, individual responsibilities. I do stand by the hallmarks of that. Newberry has benefited from that sort of idea of Springs County being out there. The county has made decisions based on that potentially being out there. I mean, let's face it, we got 11,000 signatures at this point in an effort to pursue Springs County. I talked with the governor's team lead just a couple of months ago about it. I think there's a lot of benefit in the Springs County concept. I think it addresses a lot of the challenges that we're seeing with the school board and with the county. Going to just the charter alone. I mean, just read the last two articles in the Lateral Chronicle about the school board. They just found out they're $33 million short this year. I mean, come on. We have an opportunity with this elementary charter school board and the public charter school to have people here in Newberry actually making the decisions for our kids instead of the school board over there. I would hope that absolutely spreads to the middle school and the high school. And the city actually will be involved. So what she was saying is not correct. The city will be involved with the charter element because we are going to be providing some vendor services to them, such as running their payroll, access to the retirement system, because we want to preserve that for the teachers and a couple of things like that. So we actually will have some involvement.
Ms. Glanzer, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I do not support Springs County. Seceding from Alachua County isn't going to solve the problem. You've still got the same people here, and the understanding I had was the boundary was going to go all the way to 34th Street to Gilchrist County. Well, those are the same people voting for the leaders of the Alachua County that would be voting for Springs County. So I'm not sure how the leadership would change. You'd be carrying all that debt with you. It hasn't been done in 100 years for a reason. And I've talked with legislators also, and they say there's just no way it could be physically sound or reasonable or doable to secede from Alachua County. I mean, you just consider all the police department, all the schools, the city halls, it's impractical. And if it could be done, I'd like to see a plan for it, but it is not reasonable. My plan would be to work with the county that we have. There's been a problem, they say, in the last few years that we haven't been able to work with our Alachua County Commission, but I'm a bridge builder, and I would really work to make that relationship happen, because they're the ones that have the purse strings that can help us and get policies passed that we need to pass. Seceding from the county is not the way to do it. We need to work with the structure we have, and that would be me to do that.
We'll be moving out of the audience-generated questions and into the 4-minute crossfire.
I think I'm good. I did want to say one thing. So I realize that as mayor, you can talk to the commissioners, but the one thing that happened, it was a leading question, on February 10th when the commission voted to hire Mayor Marlowe to the city commission, to the city manager position. That happened on a Monday night. Tuesday morning, there was a beautiful professional, Mayor Martin for, Martin for Mayor campaign. So I wonder, how did you get that out? If you hadn't talked to everybody to know what was going on, how did you, in a short period of time, set yourself up to run for mayor?
I had already talked with the mayor.
Because it
Go
put
ahead.
the rest of the candidates at a disadvantage because we did not know what was going to happen that night. Because if I was going to run for mayor, I would have had my campaign up and running sooner as well. So,
Well, I had already talked with the mayor about because I could talk with the mayor. I could talk with the mayor about that, so I had that conversation with him. I don't think that I had even decided much beforehand, but, quite frankly, sometimes that's just the advantage of an incumbent and being up here to have those conversations
so a week
with the
before it
mayor.
happened, you knew it was going to happen?
A week before it happened.
Well, you
No.
had to get your campaign ready, in a week, so.
I'm very good at campaigning, Joyce, so I know how to do it very quickly.
Just asking.
I mean, I have all the, I have all the tools at my disposal. It doesn't take me long to make a sign like that. It doesn't take me long to send out an email. It doesn't take me long to order signs. I've done it for, dozens of candidates at this point, so, I don't know what to tell you.
Thank you.
I'm just good at it, I suppose. And I guess my question is, you started and you were saying how you feel like the city needs a brand new start. Well, I didn't think there was anything wrong with the city now.
Oh, well, I'm not saying there was anything wrong. It's just nothing wrong with new leadership. I have ideas too, and I think with Jordan's, I would never have, considered ever running for mayor if Marlo had stayed in it. But I thought, with him moving down, there's a great opportunity for new blood. And not to mention that we haven't had a woman serve here as elected official since I was there in 2017.
I think Lois Fort, Lois Fort, and I think Elena Lawson would probably disagree with you. Let's not forget that they actually served up here
No,
quite a while.
I know, I met since then. Yeah,
But that's the
I didn't say I was the first one. I said I was
of
the
the
last
voters,
one.
and how many have actually run? You've run
I
four
run-
times and lost 4 times. The last 4
3.
campaigns you run, you lost. Correct?
Let's see,
You ran against me and lost. You ran against Anna Prizia and lost.
And now I'm running.
Yeah. So the last 4
Well,
campaigns.
Tim, it doesn't matter how many times you
you-
lose. My mom said, you get up and you do it again. I'm in business, and
there's no
it's a
problem
lot
with
of hard
yeah.
times, but you have to get up and do it again. I believe in this town, and I want to serve however I can. If the citizens don't want me, that won't happen. But there's nothing wrong with trying, and there's nothing wrong with putting it's hard running, it's not for the weak of heart to run for office, as you know. And so I don't back down from that. I might run again, who knows? If I
I know, but
lose,
saying that we haven't had a woman up here is.
No, I said I was the last one to serve. I didn't say I was the first one. I said there hasn't been one up here since I served. After I got out in 2019, there has not been one. But, I wasn't saying any. You're making a big deal of that. But I would like to say that there was not a woman that has served since I was here.
All right, candidates, thank you so much.
Sorry.
That concludes our 4-minute crossfire.
Thank you.
All good. We're now going to begin our third category, which is governing philosophy. Our first question. So, Mr. Martin, because your position as chair of the Republican Party of Alachua County and as a paid lobbyist for the John Birch Society require you to take an oath to be loyal to their philosophies, how will you reconcile that loyalty with being a nonpartisan mayor?
Well, I'm not a paid lobbyist per se directly by the John Birch Society. It is one of my jobs. I am a federal lobbyist in D.C., but I think that actually helps Newberry because it gives me a seat at the table with our federal officials. I have represented the city locally at the state level and at the federal level. But let's not forget, if you want to go to jbs.org, that's our website, you'll see that our motto is less government, more responsibility, and with God's help, a better world. If you can't agree with that, I'm not sure that we're going to agree on many things. But I have, that's just a philosophy that I agree with. I think those are important tenets, for our family units within our community. I think all those things are important, and I think those are all, things that make up our character community. So I'm not going to back down from that. I embrace that, and I think it's important for our community.
Ms. Glanzer, what is the number one priority of government?
Well, it's very simple. 4 words. The government serves the people. The closer the government is to the people, the more representative it is of the people. It gets less representative when you move away from the people. In other words, don't get them involved in your decisions, and you don't talk to them, you don't let them interact with you. So, like I said, the government serves the people. We're not here to serve ourselves. We're here to do what the public wants to do. It's not about us, it's about you guys. And so that's another reason I have open door policy. I want to know what if you don't talk to me, I don't know what you're looking for, I don't know what you want. And so I do want input from the city and from the citizens. In my opinion, that's the best way government works.
All right, Mr. Martin, citizens have complained that their interactions with you as a city commissioner are unkind if they belong to a different political party than you or if they challenge your opinion. You have asked more than one of them to move out of town. How will that change if you are mayor?
Well, when you've been called, let's see, a drunk, and I don't drink, a misogynist, a racist, let's see, what are some of the other, a right-wing conspiracy theorist, when I become, called all these names, I think I have an absolute right to defend myself, because I don't necessarily take that as an attack on me. I take that as an attack on Newberry. And if you are not going to embrace what Newberry is about, then I don't necessarily think that this may be the place for you. We can certainly welcome people, but I would ask people to to keep their politics at the city limits. And I think because we do such a really good job here, I don't want to see that being infiltrated in here. I don't want to make Newberry Gainesville. Let me be clear. I do not want that. We are different for a reason. And the arguments that you see on social media are primarily with the same people that, they're complaining about growth being reckless, yet they're living in the new communities in this town. I mean, how does that make any sense whatsoever? That's pretty hypocritical. Most of these people don't like me for my politics. That's fine. It doesn't really bother me. It just kind of rolls off my back. I really just kind of think that's my position. As a mayor, I probably need to do a little bit better at maybe my, framing of things. But we're all adults. I think we can all, tell it like it is.
Thank you. Ms. Glanzer, during COVID, the county tried to take away our rights and lock everyone down. Did you agree with this approach or not?
So being, excuse me, in my business as a realtor, we were considered essential services, and so we were able to stay open. However, there were protocols. We had to take off our shoes and open doors before people got there. I mean, there were a lot of regulations. Newberry was like a little bubble. I mean, we did not have the lockdown, and I, for one, I was still able to work, so I had a different perspective. But I did see people losing their jobs. I mean, restaurants closed down. It was extremely, extremely difficult. I believe in being safe and listening to our health professionals on what the best practices are. But I think on some level there was some extremes that were crossed during that time. I was glad in Newberry that we did still get to live more normal lives. I mean, we all still did lock down at times, but I think that I think Newberry had a good balance of keeping safe but letting people still make a living, and I'm grateful for that. So that's, yeah.
Mr. Martin, if you become mayor, that will be the 3rd job that you have. 1 is the chair of the Republican Party of Alachua County, 2nd as a John Birch Society lobbyist, and 3 as a mayor. Can you list for us the order of importance you will give to each one?
Okay, so I am not, my job with the John Birch Society is not a lobbyist. It is one of the things that I do. Primarily, I'm what's called a National Development Officer. So I speak with clients who are donating to our organization, people who are advertising with our organization, people who are leaving things to the Burt Society in their will. That is my primary focus because that's what pays my bills and feeds my family. But you know, it's not going to be much different than what I'm doing now as a commissioner versus being a mayor. And quite frankly, I think that I bring a very good skill set of time management to the table. And, you know, just within the Republican Party, for instance, we have a great team that does the lion's share of the work. So it's really about delegation. It's really about leadership and putting those skills to work to get a lot of work done. I get more work done the less I, sort of do and make sure it gets delegated out to the right people. That's how we operate here at the city, is delegation. We hire a city manager to run the day-to-day operation. It's about the delegation. It's about the leadership and, empowering the people to make good decisions and putting them, in a position to succeed. I have that approach, at everything that I really do. And I think because I'm busy, I get a lot of stuff done, and that benefits a lot. It benefits the school, quite a bit when I'm in the booth on Friday night, calling football games or serving in the students or serving over at my church. All of that stuff is stuff that I do. I don't watch TV for one thing. So that frees up a lot of my time. And so it's really about time management.
Ms. Glanzer, when it comes to solving problems like homelessness, poverty, or food insecurity, what do you see as government's proper role?
Well, the main thing for government is, the health and safety and welfare of our citizens and keeping a budget. Homelessness is a societal problem. If we have homeless people living on the street, that affects our community. So on some level, we need to address it. We have homeless shelters in Alachua County that are being funded, by grants and donations, and I support that. And I have a little pantry across the street. It doesn't help much, but, we feed people who need an everyday loaf of bread or whatever like that. It's a fine line. Government has to pay the bills for what we're responsible for, and that's on top of it. But I do support, having a heart. On the city level, there's not a whole lot we can do. We don't have a budget to build affordable housing. We don't have a budget to, feed the poor. But we certainly can have a heart for it. And as citizens, I think we're obligated to reach out and help where we can. Volunteer to homeless shelters, donate to your pantries, stand up for these people that they can't stand up for themselves. And, sometimes it's not because of their own fault. They have lost their jobs. There's families that are living in their cars. But as a city, as an entity, I would like to see us reach out, but we can't, save the world and build houses, like I said. That's on a different level, but we need to be aware of these. And we don't have homeless people living on the street in Newberry, and we're very lucky about that. But, on the county level, they do have that problem, but they have worked on it and have a shelter now and are working on that way. But, we need to be aware of it, and we need to do our own part to feed the poor. That's part of what a human being does, but not as a city.
All right, so now we're going to go to our audience-generated questions for this section. This is a question for both candidates. Mr. Martin, you'll give your answer first, and then Mrs. Glanzer. What element of high school education do you feel are important for personal success / good citizenship?
I think that it's important to be able to do math. I think it's important to be able to handle your finances. I think it's important for you to be able to, get involved in some clubs like FFA that'll teach you about parliamentary procedure, for instance, which is something that we do up here every day. Student government is great because it teaches you, different things about how to interact, with government. All of those are great skills. If we look at, what our parents talked about with the reading, writing, arithmetic, I think those are our core services. I'm, very leery of the social engineering classes and efforts that get put forth a lot in the public schools. So I don't like those sorts of things at all. But I also think that sports is incredibly important. I think it teaches a lot of character. I think it teaches about adversity, and I think it teaches about leadership, just within a team. I mean, I watched that football team and I watched the basketball team. You can pick out in 20 seconds who the leader of that team is. I mean, it is so abundantly clear. And I'm all about supporting those programs to make sure that those opportunities are available for you kids. Our daughter's graduating here in a couple of weeks, but I intend to stay involved in the high school regardless, because I want to make sure that you guys have those opportunities, if not create even more for you.
Mrs. Glanzer, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, good. So, yeah, we had 4 children here, and we went, all through the grades. So we say we had 52 kid years in schools in Newberry, and it was a wonderful experience. But, education is really individualized. Some kids will go on to be doctors and go to grad school and med school. Other people might be fine in the trades. We need welders. We need, auto mechanics. So not everybody is cut out for college, and not everybody can afford it, frankly. I mean, I just heard yesterday that there was a doctor, she was a ophthalmologist, but anyway, she had $500,000 in student debt. That's ridiculous, and so unless you can afford it, unless you can, find a way to get loans and pay them, I think that that's not reasonable. But I do think that each individual child, you have to take it one at a time. I've been a Take Stock in Children mentor for 25 years, and I've seen children that wouldn't have the opportunity to go to college, but through this program, if they get through high school with a C average, they can have a college education. So I highly support that program, and if you adults can mentor these children, that's what's really needed to help them get through. But again, there's not one answer to that. Should they be high school educated? Should they be college educated? It depends on their own interest in life and what they want to do.
Thank you. This question is for both candidates. We'll start with Ms. Glanzer and move to Mr. Martin. What's your view on limits for school board, state office, and Congress?
There's two-way street down there. I once said that politicians and elected officials are the only ones that get fired for doing a good job. On the other hand, there's institutional knowledge that does help if they stay in there a long time. But on the other hand, there does need to be fresh ideas. Things get stale. You get used to your position. So, I think that term limits. I don't think they should be strict. 10 to 12 years maybe. But again, it depends. Like if you're talking on a local level, Monty Farnsworth has been here 22 years. He knows everything about the city that's happened in the last 2 decades. And that's good, but I still think that we need to have fresh people, new people, and the new people moving into town to feel like there's an opportunity at some point to serve, and that you don't have lifetime members up here. So, I would encourage, limits.
Mr. Martin, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yeah, go ahead. It was about term limits, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Although they were used.
What's your view on limits for school board, state office, and Congress?
Yeah, the state is actually already looking at those sorts of things. I'm not really in favor of term limits because it takes away, really a motivation for some of the electorate to be involved. They sort of think, well, I don't like that person. I'm just not going to engage because eventually the clock is going to run out and they're going to be removed from office automatically. The term limits cuts both ways. We have great, leadership in Thomas Massey, Rand Paul, some of the people that I really love in Congress right now. I'd hate to have them be removed from Congress just because of a clock. So it cuts both ways. And term limits just creates a lot of apathy. And in term limits, we have term limits at the State House in Tallahassee. It doesn't really change our, district very much. Our district has been a Republican district for a very, very long time. So term limits don't really have the effect that people like to think that they will. And I think it also empowers the staff. That's a situation where the staff knows that the rep is going to turn over. So, when we talk about some of the problems at the federal level It's really about the administrative state that keeps expanding, and it just stays and stays. I think term limits are just absolutely going to exacerbate that problem, because you're going to have institutional knowledge that's in the administrative state versus the actual representative state. And, frankly, you don't need to be an elected official. Ms. Glanzer said you don't have to be an elected official to have an impact. One of the things that we did on the commission early was, we got rid of a lot of, payments that were going to groups. Those groups are actually flourishing now because they weren't relying on the state. So I really think that term limits is a bad idea.
All right, this question is for both candidates, and it is in relation to the first question that I asked, which I will repeat. The first question was, what impact of high school education do you feel are important for personal success and good citizenship? The second part of this question, what things would you say are the opposite of those values that are currently being taught in high schools today? And Mr. Martin, you will get the first answer. I can clarify if you would like.
Yeah.
So I believe it is asking, from those elements that you said previously were the most important to fostering success and good citizenship, what in high schools currently today are being taught that would negate those elements?
As a general basket of things, it's not so much that we're teaching classes that are negative, it's sort of the agendas that are being driven from the school board down into, the classroom. Things about gender identity, things about sexual identity. I just don't think they have a place in the classroom. They may have a place at home. I think, parents should have those conversations, but I don't think, potentially unequipped teachers should be having those sorts of things. It just creates, wedge issues within the classroom that create, friction, and they create problems. Why can't we just have schools focus on education?
So, I do believe that students and young people should have the opportunity to speak out and ask questions. It's true that the teachers may not have the skills and level of education to talk about certain things that they may want to know, like they may need to go to a counselor about that. But, I don't want the children to be stifled. If they feel different, if they look different, or if they are being bullied, I think they should be able to talk to somebody about that and talk to their, classmates, talk to their teachers about it. I wouldn't want them to get stifled. I think there's a misperception that it's being taught. I don't see that on any curriculum, teaching these kind of things in middle or high school. So, but I do believe that children should be able to, express themselves if they don't, it's hard growing up, and they need to have a place they can go to feel safe and where they can talk to an adult. But I don't think there's an opposite effect going on with, anything in high school that I'm not over there, so I'm not a teacher, so I'm not aware, but I want them to be free to express themselves.
Okay, this question is specifically for Ms. Glanzer. Why did you change parties?
That's a good question. I was I haven't changed. I've been the same for 50, 60 years since I've been voting, 50 years. And I felt like my party had changed a little bit, the leadership. I had people tell me that I was, my Republican friend said I was, too liberal, and my Democrat friend says I was too conservative. I'm pretty much in the middle, but I had Republicans tell me that they didn't think I was, I was a rhino. Anyway, parties are so overblown. I feel I have very strong feelings about my politics and the way they are, and they haven't changed. And I've been here so long, and people here know me. They know I'm not going to turn Newberry into Gainesville if I could even do that. I'm not going to be bringing paper straws here. I'm the same person I was, and I just felt like at first I went to an NPA, non-party affiliation, but I want to vote in primaries, and so you have to be with a party. But basically, I feel like the party changed, not me, a little bit, and I don't think I'm the only one. I think there's a little bit of that going on.
Thank you. This one is for Mr. Martin. What was the debt when you started on the dais, and what is it now?
I think when I started, it was probably out of the room. One of the numbers I remember is $7 to $8 million, and I think now it actually went down considerably up until about 2 years ago. We, at one point, I think the national average per household debt just for local government was like $1,500 per family. We actually had it down to 250. I remember doing a post about it. You can go back in my page and look, but we have had to leverage some debt recently in order to get some of these projects off the ground. So it has built up, and I think what really kind of have to keep in perspective is who's actually going to be paying it. Going back to the wastewater treatment, I want to make sure that the people who are creating the demand are actually paying for that demand. But I actually couldn't tell you what the exact figure is as we stand right now.
All right, this next question is for both candidates. Mr. Martin, you will give your response first. Do you agree with having the mayor as city manager?
Having that role combined, or having Mayor Marlowe go into that role as the city manager?
It isn't specified.
Okay. Well, let's take the latter. We quite frankly had a great run with city manager New. I was on the dais at the time when we chose him to be our city manager. When he announced his resignation, it's sort of like losing one of your good friends in that role. He had done such a great job, but that season of our life is over. So as a leadership team, I think we had to make a decision what was going to be best for the city. Because the Mayor Marlowe, had worked so closely with the city manager for all this time, it seemed like a natural thing to have him assume that role, because he knew all the projects that were in the hopper. He knew all the people that were involved, and quite frankly has a lot of institutional knowledge that our city can benefit from. So I think it was a wise decision. He has already said that he's not planning on staying in that role forever. He would love to be able to go back to teaching, I think, at some point when it's appropriate. But rather than spend a lot of money on an executive search, for instance, we know everything about this guy that we possibly could. I'm pointing over here because he usually sits over here. We know everything we need to know about him. If we already have an in-house candidate that is more than qualified, why spend the money? And I think that goes to just being fiscally wise on our part as a commission.
All right, Mrs. Glanzer.
Sure. So the commission, this board, does have the full authority to hire the city manager. He serves at the will and wishes of the commission. I think what happened, maybe there was some public perception that, we weren't told everything, but it would have been unfair to these applicants if it had already been predetermined that Mayor Marlowe was going to move into the city manager position. It would have been unfair to spend $100,000 looking for a new one. I'm not sure. There must be some middle ground where citizens felt like there wasn't an opportunity for other people to apply for this job. And but again, if the commission had decided already that he's the one they wanted, that's the way it works. And so I think that Mayor Marlowe will do a good job as a city manager. He's been here forever, and as Mr. Martin said, he knows all the issues and projects that are underway. I do wish in the future that we could have a little more transparency about that. It felt like it was all done before they got here, but that being neither here nor there, the commission does have the full authority to hire whoever they want to for city manager.
This question is for both candidates. I'll start with Ms. Glanzer. What is your position on the BOCC challenging the single-member districts?
So here's the deal. There's two ways to look at it again. You have 5 commissioners that represent the whole county. Now, when you look at the state level, you have districts, because you don't want somebody in Miami deciding what we're going to do up in Gainesville. So that's why you have districts on a large scale. When you're talking about a county, it's a small area, and the issues they have with water in Hawthorne are, similar to what we have over here. So being such a small area, you have 5 representatives to call, not just one. I'm not sure it serves a great purpose to have a single-member district, because you only have one representative at that point. I've had one of the I've had lots of talks with them, and, their position is, why should they answer my phone call if they're not my representative? Where before, with open districts, I could call any 5 of them, and they were my commissioner. So, on some level, it helps us. We are not a state, again, if you have a representative in down south, they don't know our issues up here. So it makes sense to have representatives in different parts. But in a small county, it's a little different. So that's that
Thank you.
explanation.
Mr. Martin, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
What is your position on the BOCC challenging the single-member districts?
Well, unfortunately, the county has the opportunity for us to pay for both sides of the argument. We pay the taxes, and then they use our taxes, to create lawsuits against us. I'm in favor of the single-member districts. I know there's too many people here who, despite the fact that we supposedly had 5 representatives to call, that they never got a phone call back from any of the representatives on the county commission. The single-member districts may or may not be a benefit. I think the time will tell, but I like to have somebody that's actually familiar with our area. I don't know about you, but I don't see our commissioners out here very much at all. Had Jen Garrett been elected, Jen Garrett has been out here. She knows the community, and as we've spoken in the past, and here tonight, the issues here are different than the issues that are in other areas of the county. And I want somebody that's actually dedicated and solely representative, to our area. And it is very similar, despite, being a county, that we don't need a representative from Miami having the same talk as somebody in Tallahassee. There's very different issues, and I think it's important to have different representation that's actually focused on those issues. So I think they're going to lose the lawsuit because they didn't do it right. I've read the briefs, and I know what is in them. So they kind of know that, I think, already intuitively on their own, and I think they went ahead anyway and spent a lot of money of our hard-earned tax money to fight something that was pretty much a foregone conclusion.
Great, thank you. I apologize, that was my Jeep going off, so I apologize for that. To end off on a nice little lighthearted note, this was a question submitted for Mr. Martin. Do you drink from a paper straw?
No, I can't even think of the last, because I try to avoid going east of I-75.
All right, thank you. Okay, so now we are going to go into our 4-minute crossfire for this category. You guys have before?
Sure. Oh, do you have a question? No. No, I don't have a question.
Okay.
Nope.
Well, I appreciate some of the credit that she's giving to with regards to the Ag Tech Park, with regards to the sheriff contract, with regards to things like that. I think that is very telling of Joy's character. Does give us the credit. I think the real big difference is that I'm actually the one that's I do think that is a better. The government's role is the protection of rights, not to choose which rights we have, or whether we should be locked down or not. Our rights don't end because of the state of our job is to set the stage and protect people's rights. And one of the biggest struggles that you have up here as a commissioner is the fact that you are balancing property rights with the rights of the person next door who also has property rights. So it takes a very skillful sort of tact to be able to try and find the balance. And that's a lot of what creates a little bit of the misconception, I think, about growth, and that's one of the toughest things that I have up here is trying to find that balance. But, you know, Mrs. Glanzer did serve alongside of me for 2 years, what she thinks about.
Oh, you know, you guys have done a great job in the last, the city has a lot going for it. I mean, all the things I see at the State of the City last month, it was just so impressive, and I'm so proud of this community. It took all 5 of you, well, 6, and I think we have a good thing going, and I would like to continue that. There's so many opportunities right before us, but we have to follow the comp plan, and we got to make sure that everything is, the growth is where it should be. I think that's one of my biggest, concerns, is that we need to make sure that we have, a tight center core of our city, and then we work out and, out that way. But I can't say that the city, a lot of those issues, I did vote on the MSTU. I'm not going to do a tit for tat, but we had a very active 2 years when I was there. AMI, we brought in AMI, we brought in the, parental leave. There were a lot of things that happened. And I voted for the ambulance bay to be built when we didn't even know we had an ambulance coming. But anyway, that being said, this city deserves the best, because you are the best.
I also, looks like we got 1 more minute left. With regards to the sheriff's contract, just to remind people of how that played out. So that night we were sitting here and we had the sheriff's department over here and we had the High Springs Police Department over here. My opinion going into that meeting was to contract with the High Springs City Police Department to service Newberry, but the Alachua Sheriff's Office contract was actually first. That contract failed. I think it was 2-3, and I was on what was the prevailing side, but it was the no side. Then the High Springs contract came up, and it was clear to me live on the dais that the High Springs team was just not ready for us. I couldn't in good conscience put our city in the situation, nor put the city of High Springs in the situation of setting them up for failure. So that vote failed, both votes failed, and we were not going to have any advanced service. I actually recalled the previous motion that failed through a parliamentary procedure. I changed my vote, and we have the contract that has saved millions of dollars for the city of Newberry.
All right. We are now going to move into our closing statements. You both will have 2 minutes. Mr. Martin, you will go first, and then Mrs. Glanzer, you will follow.
Well, before my time starts, can we just give a round of applause to the Newberry High School student government? You guys did a fantastic job. Well, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to invest in our community. Those who are present and watching online, I want to thank Joy for getting into the race. I think I'm a better candidate because she is. But as I said in my opening, I really hope that you were able to hear some of the commitment that I have, the conviction that I have, as well as the consistency that I have. The commitment is really not even just about me, but my entire family. Here in Newberry. Our daughter is in charge of tons of clubs over at the high school. She's worked at Villaggio's since she was 15 years old. She's 18 and about to graduate. Our son, who's over here, he works 60 hours a week right now. He works at Family Dollar. He works at the rec center, and he's a second-generation rec basketball coach too after me, which is pretty cool. And he's already got hardware in his second year, so that's pretty impressive. I have conviction to principles about family, community, God, a government's proper role in our lives and service. And yes, I can be open to all sides of an issue, but it doesn't. Courtesy is a two-way street. I believe in small government. I believe in personal responsibility. I believe in keeping taxes focused on core services. We have proven that in Newberry that works. Our government, particularly at the federal level, has gotten too big, too expensive, and way too intrusive. And I think we can all agree that a lot of times we just want to be left alone. I am consistent. I have not flip-flopped on issues. I can take a position and I can actually stick with it. Sometimes maybe my directness becomes or feels blunt, and I'll own that. That's not a problem. But I realize people are used to elected officials who talk in circles and never maybe answer questions, and I just don't want to do that. Friends, local government is about local stuff. We set the taxes, the zoning, and the permits. I'm not trying to fill Mayor Marlowe's seat. I don't think either one of us can do that. But I see this like a job interview, a 12-year job interview, and I ask you to just take a look at the body of work that I have done, top to bottom, side to side, when you go cast your vote on April 8th.
I also thank you guys for doing this tonight. This is a huge job, and I hope it was a good experience for you. It's terrifying for candidates. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you for being here, everybody else, tonight. It was really a pleasure, and I hope after this you're better able to see the way forward that the city is going and some of the issues that we're facing. There are less than 2 weeks to the election, and I hope after tonight you may leave with more questions than you came with. And I'm here, I'm open. I hope you call me and we can talk. You know, leaders don't have all the answers, and a good leader, I think, reaches out to other people to get their ideas to come together and create the solution from that interaction. As your mayor, I want to know you. The past couple of weeks, I've met many of you on my porch across the street, and I appreciate that. We've talked, and I want to do more of that. Thank you again, and vote on April 8th. Thank you.
This concludes our program. Again, we want to thank the candidates and all of you for attending. We urge you to take the next step and vote to demonstrate that democracy is alive and well in the city of Newberry.
Good job, guys. Good job.
If you'll need if you want a sign of mine, just grab one off of the sidewalk outside.
All right, everyone, please vote on Tuesday, April 8th. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and voting takes place at the Menfleet Northfleet Municipal Building.